In 1999, researchers at MIT scanned subjects making routine choices and found the basal ganglia had resolved the outcome 350 milliseconds before the prefrontal cortex registered any decision at all. Neuroscientists still cannot fully account for where that choice was made, or who made it. The basal ganglia sits deep inside your skull, beneath the cortex, roughly at the center of your head. Not one structure, a cluster. The caudate nucleus, the putamen, the globus pallidus, the substantia nigra, ancient tissue present in every vertebrate alive. It predates the cortex you think with by hundreds of millions of years. Standard curricula, every medical school, every psychology program from the 1950s through the 1990s, devoted fewer than 3 pages to it. It was described as a motor relay, a switchboard for movement, the part of the brain that helps you walk without thinking about walking. That framing was not accidental. The basal ganglia doesn't just coordinate movement, it runs habit formation at the cellular level. Every repeated behavior you've automated, driving the same route, reaching for the same food, responding to the same emotional trigger, was physically encoded here. Not in the cortex, not in any memory you can consciously access or override. Anne Graybiel at MIT spent 20 years mapping this. In mice trained on a maze, she tracked which neurons fired during learning. At first, the entire brain lit up. As the maze became routine, cortical activity faded. One region stayed active. The basal ganglia had taken ownership. The cortex had been removed from the loop entirely. You didn't decide. Your basal ganglia decided for you, weeks ago. The standard explanation, offered when anyone presses the point, is that this is simply efficiency. The brain automates low-stakes decisions to free cognitive bandwidth for complex ones. Evolutionary advantage. The system is optimized. Nothing alarming in any of that. That's the framing in the textbooks that do mention it. The basal ganglia is a helpful tool, a background processor. A shortcut your brain runs quietly so the conscious you can focus on things that matter. Except there is a significant problem with that explanation. The basal ganglia doesn't automate neutral behaviors. It preferentially encodes behaviors tied to reward signals. The substantia nigra, the small, dark nucleus inside the cluster, is the primary source of dopamine in the human brain. And it releases dopamine not when a reward arrives, but when a reward is anticipated. That is not a detail. That is the architecture of motivation itself. The pathway connecting the basal ganglia to the nucleus accumbens is the same circuit that drives every documented addiction in humans. Everyone. Nicotine, alcohol, gambling, compulsive social validation. The pathway doesn't distinguish between them, doesn't distinguish healthy from destructive. It encodes, this produced a signal, repeat this. Your efficiency tool is making those calls. Not the part of you that reflects, not the part that reasons. Here is what makes that difficult to dismiss. In 1966, a study at the National Institute of Mental Health documented what happened when basal ganglia function was suppressed in patients with certain psychiatric conditions. The result was not motor impairment, it was decision paralysis. Patients could not initiate action, could not choose between 2 equally neutral options. Could not move through their day without an external directive providing the first step forward. The basal ganglia wasn't a relay, it was the initiator. But here's the detail that breaks every comfortable model. Patients with severe prefrontal cortex damage, the region explicitly associated with rational planning, impulse control, and judgment, often retain near-normal daily function. Poor long-term decisions, but functional. They navigate, they choose, they act. Patients with comparable damage to the basal ganglia lose autonomous action altogether. The part of your brain that standard education gave 3 pages to is more essential to daily operation than the region entire fields of psychology were built to study. Entire therapeutic models, entire frameworks of behavior change and self-improvement. All of them assume you, the conscious, deliberating reasoner, are the one making the calls. That assumption has never been fully verified. The researchers who have pushed on this offer 3 frameworks. None close the case. First, the basal ganglia is a gating mechanism. It allows or suppresses signals the cortex still decides, but that doesn't explain the 350 millisecond lead time. You cannot gate a decision that hasn't been made yet. Second, decision-making is distributed, no region is in charge, and the question itself is malformed. But this sidesteps the specific finding. It isn't about distribution. About sequence. One region moves first, every time. Third, consciousness does not initiate action. It narrates action after the fact, a story your cortex constructs about choices already made somewhere else. That third framework has substantial experimental support. It also carries implications that curricula across medicine, psychology, and neuroscience have shown very little urgency to address. Nobody has mapped where volition actually originates. Nobody has explained the lead time. The basal ganglia's role in human decision-making remains, officially, underdeveloped in the literature. The question that isn't asked in the classroom is the one that matters. If you're not the one making the decisions, what exactly are you?